today we're talking about dividing decimals. So decimal operations, and specifically we're talking about dividing. Our strategy when we're dividing is to count them up. So you're going to see what that means here in just a second. It's the same as multiplication. The only difference is you're now actually doing a division problem. So let's start with A over here. So we got 16 5/10 divided by 5/100. So we're going to do 16 5/10 divided by 5/100. So what I tell my students is I say we're going to ignore the decimals until the very end. So it's almost like we are dividing 165 by 5, okay? We definitely can do that. I'm going to use a strategy called hide and slide. So that means you're going to hide everything in the problem that you don't need just yet, and you're going to slide over as you need more information. So what I would say is, does 5 go into 1? And it does not, so I'm going to put a placeholder. So I hit everything else. Now I need some more information, so I'm going to slide over a little bit. And that just keeps me from getting overwhelmed with the problem. So does 5 go into 16? And absolutely it does. I could look at my multiplication chart. 5 goes into 16 3 times, and 3 times 5 is 15. So I subtract. 6 minus 5 is 1, and I have nothing else left. So now I can slide it over again. Bring down my 5, and does 5 go into 15? So 5 goes into 15 3 times, and 3 times 5 is exactly 15. So I have nothing left over at the bottom, which is exactly what I want. So at this point, all we have done is divided like normal. Now we're going to go back to count them up. So that was our strategy, to count them up. So you look on the outside of your division problem, and you count up the digits behind the decimal. So in this case, there are 2 digits behind the decimal. So that means I'm going to move my decimal inside 2 times. So it goes straight upstairs, and then I'm going to move it twice. So in this case, I'm going to need to add a placeholder right here. So my answer would be 330, and my decimal would end right here. One thing to make sure you're really conscious of is that you're writing your numbers where they need to be in the problem. So there's almost these invisible lines running down the problem to make sure everything is lined up really, really nice and neat. So our answer for this one is 330. And that makes sense because this is almost like $16.50, and this is like you have a nickel, okay? So this is saying how many nickels are in $16.50? Well, there would be 330 nickels in $16.50. So let's do this second one. We can also write division as a fraction, so that's why you see this fraction over here. This technically just says 182 divided by 0.2, so divided by 2/10. The difference for this one is at this on this 182, the whole number, it doesn't have a decimal that we can see, but it's really just hiding here at the back. So we probably need to make note of that before we start the question, and then let's do our hide and slide strategy. So same thing, we're going to slide over everything that we don't need yet. So I'm going to hide, and then I'm going to slide as I go. So 2 does not go into 1, so I'm going to put my placeholder. 2 goes into 18. Okay, 9 times, and 9 times 2 is 18. And then I'm going to slide over again. 2 goes into 2 1 time. And I'm actually done with the division part of the problem. So I can move that out of the way. Now at this point, again, our strategy was count them up. Count them up. So that just means we're going to count the digits behind the decimal outside of the question. So there's 1 digit behind the decimal, so that means we're going to move our decimal 1 space. So again, in this specific instance, I am going to need another placeholder, so my answer would be 910. You're counting up on the outside, moving on the inside.